Welcome to the Shiproom. You're on the air. My guest today is the original hacker tourist, a Hugo Award winner, and a New York Times bestseller on 4 different occasions. And if I could grow a goatee, you wouldn't be able to tell us apart. His new novel, Fall or Dodge in Hell, is in stores now. Neal Stephenson, welcome to the Shiproom.
Good to be here.
Fantastic to meet you. I had a ball reading the book. But it was big.
It's a Neal book.
So what do you think is harder, somebody getting through the book, or you writing it by hand?
So it's mostly by hand, but I don't find that particularly difficult. It's a few pages a day. I'm writing longhand. I'm using a good fountain pen, good paper. It's not a physically arduous thing in any way.
And so for you find it's more easy for you to be creative writing rather than typing.
It's a slower output, so the ideas sort of get to sit in the buffer a little bit longer. The first draft quality is a little higher as a result. Editing that way is just a quicker and easier process. If I want to get rid of a sentence, I just...
Having been one of the leaders here that has watched this thing called the public cloud just birth in front of us. So what was the storyline you set out with this latest book of yours?
I just wanted to do sort of a modern take on Paradise Lost. If you read Milton's Paradise Lost, it starts with Lucifer being cast out of heaven and follows his adventures subsequently. Even though the character's an evil one, it was an interesting character to Milton. And he wanted to not just trivialize that character as being a one-dimensional baddie, but wanted to explore why he was rebelling. I like the idea of trying to take that kind of a story and set it against a technological backdrop. 30, 40 years ago, it would have been a book about a single giant machine somewhere doing all of the computation. And it would have ended up being a very different story. Until we had the cloud as kind of a ubiquitous and known thing, I don't think it would have been possible to write this kind of a book.
Sure. In your books, you've looked ahead at what the future might look like, where technology may get us, and what might be waiting when we get there. So I'm curious what you think will make the next big impact in the future. Yeah, so what I have here is this really incredibly sophisticated decision-making matrix, and this 64-team tournament has been boiled down to the Elite Eight.
It's a big day for everyone filling out a future tech bracket.
That's right, and I just don't think that AI is gonna think its way out of this one.
Do not sleep on the thorium reactors. There's huge upside.
The alpha decay is slow, and it has the perfect number of neutrons.
Not 1, not 2, but 3. Helium-3.
The idea of undersea colonization is in way over its head.
This is not the first time ion drives take center stage. One word:
robots.
We are here to find out about the inevitability of future technology.
Augmented reality or quantum computing?
Well, I have to say augmented reality.
Neuralink or thorium reactors?
The thorium reactors.
Space elevator or ion drives?
Ion drive. Just because there's materials science questions around space elevators that are, but we know we
all
can
those nanotubes, right?
Yeah.
Ultra tall buildings or microwaves that don't blow up when you leave a spoon in the bowl?
Well, I wrote a story about ultra tall buildings, right? So I've got to go with that.
You put that one in there. All right, final 4 now. Augmented reality versus thorium reactors.
Augmented reality.
Ion drives versus ultra tall buildings.
Ultra tall.
You got to go with that
buildings.
one, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now the difficult choice. Which of these two is going to win?
You know, my heart in some ways is with ultra tall buildings, which is the thing I've been sort of championing for a really long time, but nobody seems to be working on those. I mean, you and I both work for the 2 companies that are currently shipping.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Ambulatory augmented reality devices, so I think it's got to.
All right, gonna put that in the winner's bracket.
Yeah.
Cloud has got a huge role to play in your book and in our future, and a big plot point that you have is security within the cloud.
Yeah.
Right? There's security with AI. There's security essentially with biometrics. And so as you were writing the book, how did you start to think about that balance of keeping sensitive data up in the cloud, keeping it secure, but also having data that's constantly kind of in motion and learning?
There have been efforts made in this area to figure out ways to do distributed secure computation where you've basically got encrypted packets jumping back and forth between processes, and it's not possible to actually inspect and know what's being computed. That's a topic that I've been hearing about, at least in the abstract, since the kind of the cypherpunk days back in the 1990s. And then there's another element that comes in, kind of, I have to be somewhat careful about spoilers, but the idea of how do you identify somebody and know what identity means. And right now, the way we generally identify ourselves, of course, is by typing in a password. And sometimes we've got two-factor ID or other more advanced kinds of identification, but it's possible to get a lot fancier than that and use all kinds of other biometrics.
Quantum computing, simulated souls,
Yeah,
rebooted brains, yeah, just normal stuff.
just, yeah, day in the life.
Do you like the tattoo or not?
Okay.
What's that say?
Yeah, that's YT on on her skateboard. And it looks like she's being towed behind a minivan.
Yeah. But that's a keeper?
Yeah. That is, that looks like some sort of a cabal or an alchemy kind of, yeah, I'm not so keen on that one.
Thumbs down, next.
So that's Cosa Nostra Pizza, from Snow Crash. You know, I'm always a little nervous about facial and neck work, but I know that the kids these days are all about it. So as long as
It's
this
all the
person
rage.
knows what they're getting into,
That's a keeper?
yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a little too close to home. And imagine what happens when this person is 80 years old and it's all saggy and out of shape. Then they're definitely going to regret having that tattoo.
That's a thumbs down then.
Yeah.
Remove that one. So you wrote an article that really hit home with the numbers called Innovation Stagnation, where you talked about the limits that organizations put on people who might otherwise be thinking really big. It's just the fear of risk and the risk of failure, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I just saw a piece about this, I think it was on Twitter just this morning, saying a similar thing, that if you go to tech conferences now, you see a lot of innovation, but you don't see a lot of experimentation.
Yeah.
Right, so there's people doing new things, but this person was perceiving a lack of willingness to just try stuff for the sake of trying it. It boils down to being willing to try things that might not work out. And that is a hard thing to sell, I think, in any kind of shareholder-controlled company. I think working on things that can't possibly make money can sometimes lead to things paradoxically that could make money.
Well, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
so-
This has been something at Microsoft we worked on before. We really had a stigma about failing. It was to be wrong or to fail.
Yeah.
It was career limiting.
Yeah.
And so, from our culture, instituting this mindset that we call the growth mindset, which is experiment, be okay to fail fast, learn, and move on to the next thing. But it's just a core part of what our culture is now. But it took us years to get to that point and to change the culture of the company.
It's really tough. Once people have been burned or feel that they've gotten in trouble,
Yeah, it's a fear.
it is. And it's, it's perfectly understandable for people to feel that way.
Okay, so anyone who's seen a video of you understands that you know a lot about swords, like a lot. So this weekend we were out looking at swords. I'd love for you to take a look at a couple ones that I found and tell me if you think I got a good deal, if I made wise decisions. Okay, sword number one.
Yeah. So this is a cutlass, obviously made for a right-handed person.
Obviously.
At $18.12. It's a good date. It could also refer to the year, because this is a weapon that would have been used by people in the Navy. And it's something that you would use in sort of close combat. So this appears to be, it's shaped like a katana, a Japanese sword. It's got a typical weight for that kind of sword, which means it's pretty blade heavy. It's got the wavy line along the edge, which is, in a real one, is left by putting clay along it during the tempering process. The handle feels not like a real katana handle. So I would say it's a pretty inexpensive reproduction. It's a little light on hand protection. Even for what it is, I suspect it's maybe not the greatest reproduction. This is a classic design that shows up in a lot of reproductions that usually gets built as a claymore. This one doesn't look like one of your better reproductions. It's got a ricasso. This part is not sharpened, but it's associated with the Scottish Highlands, and I think it's pretty much what we would call a wall hanger.
As we've been talking, we have this really fascinating thing here in the Shiproom. We have our own learning bot.
Okay.
It listens to the conversation, it analyzes it, and it comes up with the 12 most relevant questions for what you and I have talked about. So we're going to try to finish these tanagrams before the time is up. We call it the database dozen. What was the job you had before you started writing that you really liked?
I think the one I most liked at that stage was driving for a funeral home.
At what point did you just say, screw it, start shaving your head?
Right after I finished the Baroque cycle in about, I think it was 2004.
Hey, check this out.
Yeah, you win.
So is the time you spent here today with us going to prevent you from hitting your daily page quota for your next book?
Currently, I'm not in a writing mode during the few months that lead up to the publication of a book. It's just really hard to get going.
Look at that.
Just rubbing salt in my wounds.
Would you ever consider hiring a ghostwriter if it actually was a ghost? What would be easier to live without, a dishwasher or your microwave?
Oh, microwave.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Trek.
If you could eat dinner with anybody in history, what would you eat?
What would I eat?
Yeah. Oxford comma, yes or no?
I tend to use it.
Would you rather be roommates with someone learning to play the bagpipes or the accordion?
I think probably bagpipes.
If a friend offers you a pizza with pineapple on it, do you have one less friend?
Yes.
Well, hey, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Well, sure, it was fun.
It's been great talking with you.
Yeah, it's been great.
Now, before we go, if they want to find out more about you or your latest book, where should they go?
Well, the publisher's website, HarperCollins, will have everything about it.
All right, highly recommend it. I loved it. Thanks, Neal. Thanks, everyone, for watching the Shiproom. This is Brad Anderson. We'll see you the next time.
Bridge, the Cinderella story for self-driving cars is over.
Yeah, they gotta drive those pumpkins home themselves.
I know quantum computing thinks it can be in two places at once, but it might just end up in one place. Out.
Hey everyone, now that you've watched this episode of the Shiproom, I really recommend that you go to Microsoft365.com/shift and learn how to get started deploying Windows 10 and Office 365.